Hi, my name is David Tregde, and I'm an art director with a background in motion design and video production. But sometimes I get to compose the music for my projects. Recently, I was commissioned to create an event opener video that needed some sort of epic soundtrack, but not a big and bombastic soundtrack like a superhero theme. More like a contemplative track that builds over time with lots of layers until it's this big wall of sound towards the end. The client sent me Hans Zimmer's Time as the reference. So I asked the client how close they wanted me to stick to the reference. The client said something like the vibe of time, but not time exactly. Now, this client and I have worked together before, so they know my style and I know what they're looking for. So this was enough direction for me to get started. The real kicker was that I only had a weekend to get this project done, so I had to work fast and efficiently. First thing I did was bring the reference track into my project, and I marked the major section changes so that I could follow the general flow and build up of the original. As you can see here, I've marked intro, cellos coming in here, low brass and a cello arpeggio possibly coming in here, light percussion with some delay here, guitar lead, and this is where the full orchestra comes in with some heavy rhythm elements. The epic horns come in towards the end, right here at the very end, and then we fade out with some intimate string sounds. So now that I've marked my major section changes, I started with the piano intro. I'll let you hear what that sounds like, and then I'll tell you more about the VST I used. This is Westwood Instruments' recently released alt grand piano, and I'm using the Night Swimming Deep preset with some customizations and alterations here. Not the least of which is I'm running it into black hole reverb with some compression after that. So next, I wanted to start bringing in some strings, but I didn't want to bring in the normal string ensemble patch type thing. So I went to Arteria's Analog Lab and I grabbed these Sci Fi Strings, dialed in the sound exactly how I wanted, and that is going to sound like this. So as you can see here, we're again using the black hole reverb. If you work in cinematic or ambient music, you probably have heard of black hole by now, and if you don't already have it, could highly recommend. It often goes on sale. It might even be on sale at the time of this recording for the summer, but look again during Black Friday and the holidays and you might find it again. But I just find it's super easy to either find a preset. In this case, we're using the Sigur Rós preset. But dialing it in with these controls to get the exact size and tail that you're looking for is just excellent. You can always use Supermassive's free Valhalla reverb to get those big, massive reverb sounds, but I found myself gravitating towards Black Hole after I purchased it. It's just the best. At the same time these strings are coming in with Analog Lab, I'm also bringing in this bass line from Heavy Oscillations Foundation Bass, starting with their Oberhorn Drops Arpeggio. It's an arpeggiated or a gated type reverb sound. It just sounds like this. What's really cool about this instrument is its simplicity. You have your bass or your sort of sub element and the growl, which is your sort of distortion on top. So I started with this preset and kind of dialed it in so it I think it was a little more mellow in here, and that was basically it. Now, the one other thing you will see here is these Stratus synth swarms from the Oliver Arnold's Stratus sample library. And those sound like this. So this is where my track starts taking a very different direction than time. So a few things to point out here. I'm using Scalar 2 to play in chords via single notes, and then that's driving an instance of harmony bloom. So let me show you exactly what that's doing while I play it back again. So Harmony Bloom is a really interesting note sequencer, and by a it's by an artist named Mario Nieto, and I would just recommend going and checking out their YouTube channel because they have lots of tutorials, examples, and live streams of the use of this particular plugin. And I'm not going to go into it deep here, but suffice it to say, it's really great for creating what almost sound like randomized synth patches. To kind of get that modular synth sound, if you will, as well as doing things like creating melodies for different instruments, particularly repetitive melodies or ostinatos with string patches, horn patches, or woodwind patches. Another instrument I would very recommend for keeping things quick and efficient when you just need something to make a sound, right? So I'm going to scroll back up a little bit. In this next section, you can see I'm bringing in these Primaries violins in my strings section. Let's listen to those and I'll talk about them. So this is a very emotive library with a lot of aleatoric movement. This is, again, doing a lot with some very simple chords being powered by Scalar 2. The beauty of using Scalar, if you don't know anything about it is very easy to program in chord progressions by just, let's take a look here. We've got a key selected, we had our chords programmed in here, and then these are locked into my keyboard so I can just play these chords from my keyboard like this. Especially when you put this on an instrument that sort of, plays itself, like Primaries violins, it gets really easy to have a complex sound without having to spend a lot of time programming it, which is very handy when you're on a tight deadline like I was. All right, so scrolling down in the brass section here, you can see that I brought in the BBC Orchestra trombones and tuba in this same section, and that's just to give the bottom end a little more weight here, and that's what these sound like. Pretty straightforward. We're just starting to build our layers up. It's starting to get a little more interesting, starting to get just a tad bit more harsh with those very brassy notes. Next up is our light percussion should be coming in, so let's go all the way down here, and you can see I've actually got an instance of Charlie Clauser's Hammers drum library, and this is Ava Music's Decadence Trailer Tom, so I'm using the cymbals patch specifically, and those are going through several filters. So the cymbals are going through Arturia's MS-20 filter, that plus delay, compression, and some tape emulation. And then if we go up to Hammers, similarly, we're compressing, delaying, tape, EQ, and then compressing again to get this sound. So this is doing a lot of work. This distortion plugin from Arturia is doing a lot of work for the Hammers patch. Let's hear with and without. kind of weird, right? Especially with just the delay on. But when we put in this bass drum exciter preset from Distortion Tube Culture, here it goes again. So much more interesting. And I found that those two elements warped together really gave me a very interesting rhythmic sound bed underneath my track. Again, we're diverging a good bit now from what was done by Hans Zimmer in time, but I wanted to make something of my own. Going back up to the top here, next thing we're doing is really bringing in the guitar riff. I went with a 2-note variation of the riff from Time, so mine sounds quite similar, but not exactly the same. And we're using Sonora Cinematics Panorama Guitars, which is a post-rock guitar library. Has a lot of great sounds in it for doing cinematic electric guitar work. And then we're passing that through a preset on Amplitude 5. This is Dream Within a Dream, so someone actually designed a guitar tone preset that sounds very similar to the tone from Time. And that's what this sounds like. So this tone just cuts right through the mix at this point, which is really great because I'm also bringing in some more strings. You can see here the cello and bass are kind of mirroring what's going on with the trombones and tuba, but not quite. There's an added note here just to give it a little more movement. And then the violins are just kind of sitting on top doing pedal tones. So let's hear what those sound like together. Now, once you have the whole piece in context, you do start to lose some of those subtleties in the strings, but they are still there, and I think you feel them maybe more than hear them distinctly. Now, I also added in this FORZO ensemble patch from Heaviosity. Again, we're getting driven by scalar here. So we have some nice brassy chords just kind of filling in the gaps here. And that's what that sounds like all together now. So now we have the nice swelling brass chord sound that especially during this era of Hans Zimmer's career was very popular. And I still absolutely love it. It gives a sense of breathing and motion to the project that I absolutely adore. Now if we keep going down, you can see I'm bringing choirs here, and I've got two patches. One is Alt Choir from Westwood Instruments using the Episodes patch. That sounds like this. So what's great about this choir is you have sort of a chamber choir size doing things that you wouldn't expect from a much bigger sort of epic cinematic choir. And in this particular sense, they are sliding between notes within the key, which is very handy because it adds just a little bit more, humanity. And I love stacking this with other choir patches that may be a little more straightforward. So I get a nice big sound, but then I get just a little touch of realism that's sometimes absent from other cinematic choir libraries. So that's being added into an instance of Jacob Collier's Audience Choir from Native Instruments. That sounds like this. The thing I like about the audience choir is that it is bright, it is big, and it's also slightly unpolished. Like everyone's just kind of going for it. And so you combine these two sort of imperfect choirs together for a really fun sound. So they do sound, I don't know, mildly separated in here a little bit. But once they're played in the mix overall, they just kind of sit back and start to add something in. And towards the end, you'll see another instance of audience choir comes in, and that's really just to amp things up. It's using just a full-on articulation to just really drive us home there. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So, as I mentioned, I love my swells, and so you will often see a lot of swell type modulation going into my MIDI programming. And you can see here specifically, I'm kind of driving it upwards towards the end, just giving us a lot more emphasis towards the end here. While we're down this direction, as you can see here, we're moving into the all-in section, and that's where I brought in this cinematic percussion library, and that sounds like this. Pretty straightforward, but on top of the already running warped percussion sounds, it adds a little more, I don't know, of a epic or regal touch to the sound. Of course, you may have noticed there's a lot of delay going on there, and it was something I picked up when I was listening and studying time. There was some delay to the drums that made it a little more interesting, and I really want to emphasize that because that was one of my favorite parts. So the percussion overall at this point sounds like this. So pretty cool, and I was happy with what I got, and I was happy for the learning process to figure out how to get there. I think some of these techniques are things I'm going to reuse again in the future, combining interesting instruments like hammers with really cool FX chains to make something totally unique. All right, if we go back up, let's go to this epic horns section. And so you can see here industrial horns and trombones from Synths samples coming in, stacked in octaves, and that sounds like this. So kind of took a page out of Hans Zimmer's book with the fifth jump or hero jump between notes, and I am doubling horns and trombones so we get a nice big brassy sound, but also sort of that hint of soaring French horn on top. This is pretty common in Zimmer's work from the Dark Knight series, as well as Inception, and it's something I love to copycat in my own work, because when I need people to just hear epicness pretty quickly, it's a nice cheat code for sure. The other thing you'll see here right towards the very end is these epic string shorts. That sounds like this. This was a technique I hadn't picked up when I used to, just listen to time when it comes up on my playlists. But when I was studying it, I was like, oh, there's actually some string, like staccatos or whatever towards the end that are just kind of emphasizing the downbeats to kind of keep the rhythm in there towards the end in the instrument sections. So that was a kind of late addition, and I toyed around with not keeping it. Ended up leaving it in just to make sure there was enough momentum into the very end, because at the very end we have this intimate strings patch. I believe it's using flautandos. Yep. Also being driven by scalar. And then we've also got the alt grand playing just the first and third notes of each chord, an octave up where we've been, the entire rest of the song, and this part sounds like this. Very, very close to the original reference at this point, but I really just love the way that song exits, basically. The simple piano with the high strings, I love that sound. Now, if we go all the way down here again, one other thing you'll see is these transitional elements. This was actually me bouncing out a note from the alt grand piano and then reversing it. And so the ending sounds like this. Again, a technique just stolen from Hans Zimmer, but it really works, and I love the way that turned out. So everything's running into this effects track, and it's an instance of Heaviosity's vast impulse engine using the Lush Scoring Hall preset. This has become my go-to convolution reverb to just kind of tie everything together in the same virtual space. In this case, our mix is at 100% wet, and this is built into my template to start off with. I pretty much don't make any cinematic music without it these days. And then my mastering chain is basically a ripoff from Venus Theory. He did a video a while back how to do a mastering chain with all free plugins, and even though I now have some paid plugins or have looked at some paid options, I basically haven't moved away from this chain because it just works for the kind of music that I do. A lot of my stuff ends up just needing to play in an auditorium, so this just kind of works for me. And then the thing I've added a little more recently was this UAD Ampix ATR 102 tape emulation, and I'm using the demo helper. I found that just kind of slapping this on the end takes some of the digital edge off of the project as a whole, as well as just giving it a little extra punch. I haven't done a deep dive into this plugin. I don't even for sure understand what everything does. I just know that this preset makes my stuff sound better to my ears, and I like that. And that's my version of a track inspired by Hans Zimmer's time from the movie Inception. Before I play the final track for you, if you have any thoughts or questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in seeing more of my creative process, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I want to thank you for watching this all the way through. I really appreciate it. And now I hope you'll enjoy my version of a track inspired by time.